My name is Evan Brooks, and I should have known something was wrong when my wife started wearing perfume to take out the trash. I'm 34, a paramedic with the Chicago Fire Department, and I've seen enough human wreckage to know when someone's lying. The tells are always the same: avoiding eye contact, fidgeting with jewelry, and in Olivia's case, suddenly caring about her appearance for mundane tasks. Our marriage had been circling the drain for months, but I'd been too busy saving other people's lives to notice mine was bleeding out. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It was a Tuesday evening in October when I found the burner phone. I'd come home early from a double shift, my uniform still reeking of antiseptic and someone else's misery. The house was empty, which wasn't unusual. Olivia ran a wedding planning business downtown and often worked late, orchestrating other people's happily ever afters while ours crumbled like week-old cake. I was looking for my gym shorts in her bag when my fingers brushed against something that definitely wasn't lip gloss. The phone was small, cheap, the kind drug dealers use. My hands were shaking as I powered it on, though I told myself it was just the adrenaline crash from work. The text messages made my stomach drop faster than a failed intubation. Dozens of them, all to and from someone named B. The content was explicit enough to make a porn star blush, but it was the casual cruelty that really cut deep. Evan's working another double. Coast is clear for tonight. Poor little paramedic boy, so clueless. Does he still think we're just business partners? Can't wait to see his face when he finds out. This is going to be fun. I screenshot everything, my paramedic training kicking in. Document everything, preserve evidence. Stay calm under pressure. But inside, I was hemorrhaging. The front door slammed, and I heard Olivia's heels clicking across the hardwood. I slipped the phone back into her bag and pretended to fold laundry, my mind racing through possibilities. Who was B? How long had this been going on? And why did they want me to find out? "Hey, babe," Olivia called, her voice honey-sweet. "How was your shift?" "Same old chaos," I replied, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "Yours?" "Oh, you know, bridezillas and their impossible demands." She appeared in the doorway, looking flawless as always. Auburn hair perfectly styled, makeup immaculate, despite supposedly working all day. "I'm meeting some clients for drinks tonight. Don't wait up." More lies. I nodded and smiled, playing the oblivious husband while my world imploded in slow motion. After she left, I called my partner Liam. We'd been working together for 5 years, and he was the closest thing I had to a brother. "You sound like hell," he said without preamble. "What's wrong?" I told him everything. Liam listened without interruption, occasionally grunting his disapproval. When I finished, there was a long pause. "You know who B is, right?" he finally said. My heart sank. Brady Sanders. Her business partner, the trust fund pretty boy with the Porsche and the cocaine habit. I'd met Brady exactly 3 times, and each encounter had left me feeling like I needed a shower. He was everything I wasn't: wealthy, polished, and completely lacking in substance. Olivia always defended him when I made jokes about his obvious drug use and wandering hands. "What are you going to do?" Liam asked. "I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's going to hurt." 3 weeks later, I was invited to what I thought was a reconciliation. Olivia had been acting strange since our last fight about Brady, alternating between cold silence and fake sweetness. When she asked me to attend her friend Megan's bridal shower, I should have known it was a trap. The venue was a rooftop bar in downtown Chicago, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place where a beer costs $20 and everyone pretends to enjoy it. I arrived fashionably late, still in my uniform because I'd come straight from work. The moment I walked in, conversation stopped. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward me like I was a specimen under a microscope. Olivia stood near the bar, radiant in a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Everyone," she announced, her voice carrying across the room, "I want to thank you all for coming tonight. But before we celebrate Megan's upcoming wedding, I need to address something important." This was it. The ambush. "My husband has been having an affair," she continued, tears welling in her perfectly lined eyes. "I've been trying to save our marriage, but I can't live with the lies anymore." The room erupted in gasps and whispers. I stood there, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of it. She was accusing me of the exact thing she'd been doing, and doing it publicly to maximize the damage. "Olivia," I said quietly, "we should discuss this privately." "No," she snapped. "I'm tired of protecting you. These women deserve to know what kind of man you really are." That's when I smiled. Not a nice smile. the kind of smile I wore when telling family members their loved one didn't make it. "You're absolutely right," I said, pulling out my phone. "They do deserve to know the truth." I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment. The rooftop bar had a large screen for presentations, and I'd already hacked into their system during my reconnaissance visits. It took 30 seconds to connect my phone and display the first screenshot. The room went silent as Olivia's text messages filled the screen. Her face went white as I scrolled through the evidence. Photos of her and Brady in compromising positions, conversations about their affair, and most damning of all, their plan to frame me for cheating. "You want to talk about lies?" I said, my voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. "Let's talk about how you've been sleeping with Brady Sanders for 8 months. Let's talk about how you planned this whole scene to destroy my reputation. Let's talk about how you've been stealing from your clients to fund your little love nest." That last part was a bluff, but judging by her expression, it hit home. "This is fake," she stammered. "He's doctored these messages." I displayed the metadata, the timestamps, the GPS coordinates. My paramedic training had taught me to be thorough, and I'd learned a few tricks from our department's tech specialist. "The only fake thing here," I said, "is your performance as a loving wife." Half the room was recording on their phones. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media. Olivia's business depended on her reputation, and I'd just torched it in front of her biggest clients. She tried to salvage the situation, but the damage was done. Women who'd been her friends for years were looking at her like she was a stranger. Potential clients were quietly slipping toward the exits. I disconnected my phone and headed for the door, but not before delivering the final blow. "Oh, and Olivia? I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. I hope Brady's trust fund is worth it, because you're going to need it." The next morning, I woke up in my new studio apartment above a deli in Lincoln Park. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending everything was fine, no more lies. My phone had been buzzing all night with messages from friends and coworkers who'd seen the videos online. Most were supportive, but a few cut deep. Apparently, Olivia had been working her own angle, spreading rumors about my supposed infidelity for weeks. The worst was from my former best friend, Jake Morrison. We'd been tight since college, but he'd always had a thing for Olivia. His message was short and brutal. "Can't believe you cheated on her. She deserves better. Don't contact me again." Similar messages came from Tom Chen, my old roommate, and Mike Rodriguez, who'd been my best man. Olivia had poisoned them against me with her lies, and they'd chosen to believe her without even asking for my side. It stung worse than I'd expected. These weren't just acquaintances, they were guys I'd trusted with my life. We'd been through everything together: college, breakups, career changes, family losses, and they'd thrown it all away based on Olivia's manipulations. Liam found me that evening, drowning my sorrows at Murphy's Pub, a dive bar near the firehouse. "You look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Feel worse," I replied, gesturing to the bartender for another round. "Heard from the boys yet?" I showed him the messages. Liam's face darkened as he read. "Idiots," he muttered. "They always were more interested in Olivia than you, especially Jake. 20 years of friendship gone, just like that. Their loss. But we need to talk about your real problem." He slid a tablet across the table. The screen showed Olivia's Instagram account, which had exploded with sympathy posts and donations from her followers. She'd spun the whole thing as domestic abuse, claiming I'd humiliated her publicly and was stalking her. "She's playing the victim card hard," Liam said, "and it's working. Look at this." The comments were brutal. Hundreds of people calling me a monster, demanding I be fired, threatening violence. Someone had even started a petition to have my paramedic license revoked. "This is insane," I said. I showed everyone the proof. "Doesn't matter. She's young, pretty, and crying on camera. You're just another abusive husband to them." That's when I realized this wasn't over. Olivia wasn't going to slink away in shame. She was doubling down, turning my moment of triumph into her victimhood narrative, and my former friends were helping her do it. "What do you think I should do?" I asked. Liam grinned, and for the first time in days, I felt hope. "I think," he said, "it's time to show them what real collateral damage looks like." The next phase required patience and planning. Olivia had declared war, and I intended to win it decisively. But first, I needed intelligence. My ex-friends had made their choice, but they had also made a mistake. They'd underestimated me, assuming I'd roll over and accept their judgment. Jake, in particular, had always seen me as the weak link in our group, the guy who chose a blue-collar job over law school, who married the girl he couldn't have. I started with social media reconnaissance. All 3 of them had posted supportive messages on Olivia's Instagram, publicly denouncing me as a cheater and abuser. The comments were full of mutual friends taking sides, and unfortunately most were choosing hers. But social media also revealed weaknesses. Jake was still struggling with his gambling addiction, something he thought he'd kept secret. Tom was having marital problems of his own, based on his wife's passive-aggressive Facebook posts, and Mike was facing a malpractice lawsuit that could end his medical career. None of them were in positions to judge anyone else's life choices. I also discovered something interesting. Brady Sanders had been unusually quiet since the bridal shower incident. His social media accounts had gone dark, and according to my sources in the wedding industry, he'd canceled several client meetings. That's when I got the call from Megan, Olivia's former best friend. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Not over the phone. Meet me at Millennium Park in an hour." I found her sitting on a bench near the bean, looking nervous and guilty. Megan had always been the gossip of their group, but she'd also been the most honest. "I'm sorry," she said as soon as I sat down. "I should have warned you." "About the affair?" "About all of it. The plan to frame you, the social media campaign, everything." She lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "I thought it was just girl talk at first. Venting about marriage problems, but then it got serious." "How serious?" "She's been planning this for months, Evan. The affair with Brady was just the beginning. She wanted you to find out, wanted you to look like the jealous, controlling husband. The goal was to destroy your reputation so completely that no one would believe your side of the story." "Why?" "Your uncle's inheritance, the one you're supposed to get next year. She found out it's worth a lot more than you told her. We're talking millions, not thousands." I stared at her, pieces clicking into place. My uncle had been secretive about his finances, but I'd known he was comfortable. I just hadn't realized how comfortable. "She hired a private investigator to look into your family's finances," Megan continued. "When she found out about the money, she started planning. The affair, the public humiliation, even getting your friends to turn against you. It was all designed to make you look unstable. And then what? Divorce proceedings where she claims abuse and gets half of everything, including future inheritances, plus alimony, since you make more than her now. The scope of the betrayal was breathtaking. This wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated destruction of my entire life." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I'm not a monster," she said. "And because she's already planning her next move." "Which is?" "She's going to claim you threatened her. Brady's going to back up her story, say he witnessed it. They're meeting with a lawyer tomorrow to get a restraining order." I felt the familiar calm that came over me during medical emergencies. The situation was critical, but I knew what needed to be done. "Megan," I said, "how would you like to help me save both our reputations?" The plan was simple. Force a confrontation with my ex-friends in a public place where their true colors would show. I chose Murphy's Pub on a Friday night, when it would be packed with off-duty first responders and hospital staff. People who knew me, who'd seen my work, who wouldn't be easily swayed by social media narratives. I'd sent identical messages to Jake, Tom, and Mike. "One drink. Let me explain my side. You owe me that much." Jake arrived first, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. He'd always been the most image-conscious of our group, the one who cared what others thought. Seeing him in my neighborhood dive bar was almost comical. "This place is a dump," he said, sliding into the booth. "It's honest," I replied. "Something you might not recognize anymore." Tom and Mike arrived together, presenting a united front. They sat across from me like I was on trial, which I suppose I was. "All right," Jake said. "You've got 30 minutes. Explain why you cheated on the best woman you'll ever have." I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. The screen showed the first text message from Olivia's burner phone. "I didn't cheat," I said calmly. "She did, and she's been planning to destroy me for months." I walked them through the evidence. The burner phone, the text messages, the financial investigation, the plan to frame me. I showed them screenshots, metadata, even recordings I'd made of my conversation with Megan. Their faces changed as the truth sank in. Tom looked sick. Mike kept shaking his head. But Jake looked angry. "This is bullshit," he said. "You're making this up." "Why would I make this up?" "Because you got caught. Because you can't handle that she's better than you." And there it was. The truth I'd been avoiding for years. Jake had never gotten over Olivia rejecting him in college. He'd spent our entire marriage waiting for it to fail so he could swoop in and be her hero. "You're pathetic," I said. "You've been in love with my wife for 15 years, and you're using this as an excuse to finally make your move." Jake's face went red. "At least I never hit her." The pub went quiet. Every conversation stopped as people turned to stare at us. Jake had just accused me of domestic violence in front of 50 witnesses, most of whom knew me personally. "I never laid a hand on her," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the silence. "But you're about to find out what it feels like." I didn't hit him. I didn't have to. The crowd of firefighters and paramedics who knew me, who'd worked with me, who'd seen me risk my life to save others, surrounded our table. Their expressions made it clear what they thought of Jake's accusation. "You need to leave," said Chief Dorsey, appearing beside our booth like an avenging angel. "All three of you. Now." Tom and Mike scrambled to their feet, embarrassed and ashamed, but Jake stood his ground. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "We're done. All of us. 20 years of friendship, and you chose to believe her lies without even asking for proof. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." As they left, the pub slowly returned to normal. But I could feel the shift in the room's energy. These people had seen the confrontation, heard Jake's baseless accusation, watched my calm response. They knew who I really was. Chief Dorsey sat down across from me. "Want to tell me what that was really about?" I told him everything. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Son," he said finally, "you're about to learn something important about revenge. It's not about getting even. It's about making sure they can never hurt you again. What do you suggest?" He smiled, and I saw why criminals used to fear him back when he was a cop. "I suggest we make sure everyone knows the truth, all of it." The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. Olivia had moved fast, just as Megan had warned. She'd claimed I'd threatened her and Brady, that I was unstable and dangerous. Jake had provided a sworn statement supporting her claims, describing me as increasingly erratic and violent. But I had something she didn't expect: preparation. Over the weekend, I'd worked with Chief Dorsey and a lawyer friend to compile a comprehensive response. We had the burner phone records, the private investigator's report on my uncle's finances, recordings of my conversations with Megan, and security footage from Murphy's pub showing my calm demeanor during the confrontation with my ex-friends. More importantly, we had Brady. It turned out that cocaine habit Liam had mentioned was worse than anyone knew. Brady had been arrested twice for possession, information that was public record but hadn't made it into Olivia's social media narrative. He was also facing his own lawsuit from a former client who claimed he'd stolen money from their wedding budget. When confronted with the possibility of criminal charges for perjury and conspiracy, Brady had folded faster than a house of cards. He'd provided a full confession, admitting to the affair and the plan to frame me. He'd even turned over his own phone records, which corroborated everything I'd discovered. The hearing lasted less than an hour. Olivia's lawyer tried to argue that I'd manipulated the evidence, but the judge wasn't buying it. When Brady took the stand and admitted to lying in his original statement, it was over. Not only was the restraining order denied, but the judge referred Olivia and Jake to the state attorney's office for potential perjury charges. Their plan to destroy me had backfired spectacularly. But I wasn't done yet. As we left the courthouse, I saw them huddled together on the steps. Olivia, Jake, Tom, and Mike. They looked defeated, embarrassed, and angry. Perfect. I walked over to them, Chief Dorsey flanking me like a bodyguard. "Gentlemen," I said, "I believe you owe me an apology." Tom and Mike looked ashamed. They started to speak, but I held up my hand. "Actually, don't bother. Apologies don't fix broken trust. But I want you to understand something. You didn't just lose a friend today. You lost your integrity. You chose to believe lies over evidence, gossip over truth. That's on you." I turned to Jake, who was glaring at me with pure hatred. "And you," I said, "you're going to face criminal charges for perjury, all because you couldn't handle the fact that she chose me over you 15 years ago. Was it worth it?" Finally, I looked at Olivia. She was crying, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. "You destroyed everything," she whispered. "No," I said. "I just revealed what was already there. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided to betray me." I handed her an envelope. "Divorce papers. I'm keeping the house, the car, and my dignity. You can keep Brady and whatever's left of your reputation." As I walked away, I heard Jake shouting threats behind me, but they were empty words from a broken man. The war was over, and I'd won more decisively than I'd ever imagined. 6 months later, I was sitting in my backyard, grilling burgers for the firehouse crew. The inheritance from my uncle had come through, just as Olivia had planned, but instead of sharing it with her, I'd used it to start a foundation for first responders dealing with divorce and family crises. Olivia's business had collapsed completely. The social media campaign had backfired when the truth came out, and her remaining clients had fled. She'd moved back in with her parents and was working at a department store in the suburbs. Brady was in rehab, facing multiple lawsuits and criminal charges. His trust fund had been frozen by his family, who were embarrassed by the scandal. Jake had been disbarred pending the perjury investigation. Tom and Mike had both reached out to apologize, but I'd ignored their calls. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. As the sun set over Chicago, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. The war was over, the truth had prevailed, and I was free to build a new life on my own terms. My phone buzzed with a text from Liam. Revenge is a dish best served with evidence. I smiled and typed back, and a side of justice.